Hopefully it'll be nice and dry for the sessions this afternoon. It's been wet and tricky for the sessions we've seen so far, and the Toyotas have been struggling a little bit. Peter can find out more now with Mika Salo.
Well, Mika, obviously a bit of a scramble practice session so far. How's it been from your point of view?
It's very difficult when it's damp. It doesn't help us at all. We're lacking a bit downforce in the grip anyway, and then when it's wet we just lose even more. We seem to suffer a lot more than everybody else, but it looks like it's going to be a dry qualifying, which is good for us.
So we always ask this question. I mean, top 10, do you think still possible?
Oh, so far how the weekend's been, though, I hope to be in the race to qualify actually. So, but of course I push hard as I can, and we'll see how the car is, because now no one's done any dry practice, so we'll see where we are.
Reliability again looking good?
Yeah, reliability is no problem at all. We had no problems with the car all weekend again, and that's okay. But qualifying is very important here. Overtaking is very difficult, so have to push hard and qualifying.
Now here you've got a nice little enclave going with David Coulthard and Jacques Villeneuve. All share, well, not sharing, but 3 motorhomes together, 3 drivers staying, camping at the track.
Yeah, it's my first race in a motorhome. I used it for testing, and all last year and this year. It's really practical. At the moment it's very busy in mine, because I have a dog and a baby and a wife and a nanny also there, so it's a bit crowded, but it's okay.
Fantastic. What sort of dog?
It's a little Labrador.
Beautiful. What's she called?
Leila. She's deeply in love with me. She sleeps in the bed with me, and my wife sleeps on the sofa.
And does Jacques Villeneuve make a lot of noise from next door?
No, he's alone, thank God for that, so he's alone. He's a quiet boy now.
Okay, thanks very much, Mika. Good luck.
Thanks a lot.
So good to hear that Mika Salo and Jacques Villeneuve there involved using the motorhomes, more like the American drivers tend to. They tend to use motorhomes rather than using the hotels near the track, John.
Yeah, because there's so much responsibility now being a driver, you don't get away from the track probably until early evening. So rather than having to drive all the way out of the circuit, rush back, get your physio sorted out, get your dinner sorted out, get to bed at a relatively early hour, just stay at the circuit. And if you've got some of these luxurious motorhomes, it's just like being in a hotel suite, and they've all got their own cooks and drivers and bottle washers and whatever. And in the case of Mika, a dog. I don't know if Jack's got a dog with him or not, but certainly it's I don't know if you're not allowed to bring dogs into the racetrack anyway.
Maybe you can in Italy. Meanwhile, Amy Lewis has just called up with David Coulthard. Let's hear from him.
David Coulthard is a Michelin runner this season. How happy are you to see the sunshine today?
Well, I think that the full wet conditions, we weren't too bad. Obviously intermediate, we were struggling quite a bit relative to the Bridgestone, but yeah, dry is a much better way to go racing for everyone, really, isn't it?
You said yesterday that you still think that McLaren had a bit of work to do to get to where you think they should be. Have you identified any specific problems, or is it just a case of trying a bit of everything?
No, that we know a couple of areas that we're down in comparison to last year, and we're working on those.
And finally, have you got a new suite in your new motorhome?
A new suite? No, we've got our little driver area, which is very nice and private, so gives us somewhere to lie down and have a snooze before the race, which is welcome after lying on the floor in Brazil and places like that, because there isn't much area for the whole team.
David, best luck for this afternoon. Thank you.
And as David finishes talking, the green light comes on at the end of the pit lane, and the second session of free practice is actually all called one session of free practice, just with an interval between. But we're all set for the last 45 minutes before qualifying, and this is absolutely crucial time. In a way, everybody is back to square one. The track almost dry, and it will certainly be fully dry through this session, and it gives everybody the opportunity to now start on as grooved dry weather tyres. And as I say, John, basically start from scratch, try and do all the setup work and decide which compound of tyre to use.
Yeah, isn't it great? We're going to see, I think, one of those magic 45-minute sessions when suddenly all the gloves are off. Now it's down to real motor racing. Okay, you have to go through the whole process with wets and intermediates, but Grand Prix racing is about racing in the dry, everybody on a level platform, and we're going to see, hopefully, the times literally drop by the lap, and what a great portent it is going to be for that 1 hour of qualifying, which starts at 1 o'clock local time, of course, 12 o'clock in the UK.
So out onto the track then, they're starting to come out immediately. Jarno Trulli, the first one to come out of the pit lane. Michael Schumacher not quite ready to get aboard his Ferrari. The times that we saw this morning are 1:29.718 for Juan Pablo Montoya, but remember, we're looking at times around the 1 minute 23 second bracket. That was pole last year, 1 minute 23.054. and we're looking for, well, perhaps improvement on that, perhaps into the 22s here today.
I would certainly hope to see something in the 22s. Ironically, when a circuit has been as it was on Friday and first part of this session on Saturday morning, if the conditions continue to heat up, the track can actually be quite quick. And also, sometimes when you've got just margins of the track which are still damp, the track also can be very fast. It's just a question of making sure that you're totally accurate and precise in placing the car. You will get caught out if you're a little bit careless or too relaxed, but we'll get an indication from Jarno Trulli when he completes this out lap and then starts the first flying lap, because this is the nearest we're going to see to a simulation of qualifying. Brand new set of tyres, first time for Trulli, I suspect, on a set of dry weather tyres, and I look forward to seeing what he's up to.
Of course, we've seen over the course of this year so far the fact that the Michelin tyres tend to like it when there's a bit more rubber down. We've seen that at a couple of Grand Prix, that they seem to get going faster once more rubber has been laid down. Not much rubber has been laid down so far, so it might not be such good news for them.
Possibly not, but the difference is that now there's pressure on everybody, pressure on teams. Stop being too analytical, stop thinking too much about it, just go out and drive the car.
Well, that's what they've got to do. Both Renaults are on track at the moment. Jarno Trulli, you're riding on board with now, the Italian, coming into the Tamburello, and that's where you start using the curbs. You could see how much he used of the first curb on entry. Now he accelerates back up to about 180 miles an hour before getting back onto the brakes. Through the first part of the chicane at about 125 miles an hour. Second part slightly slower. They have to brake in the middle slightly, and now down towards the Tosa hairpin, and we get an idea on the split. And as you can see, as yet, no quicker than Montoya's from earlier on.
No, but Montoya did have a 2 or 3 lap run on those tyres, so therefore he had confidence. Trulli is just gaining that confidence.
Oh, we've got a Jordan off again, would you believe it, at Aqua Minerale.
And it's Sato.
Yeah, it's the Japanese driver who has gone off. And dear oh dear, you're going to have to start behaving yourself, otherwise the team is going to lose patience. Takuma is such an exciting driver to watch, but he does just need to make sure he gets the laps under his belt in these sort of sessions.
And again, same part of track. Again, he's off. I mean, this after the first, barely got round the first part of Aqua Minerale.
It's almost,
and it's just almost a mirror. You can see his previous tracks in gravel trap all the way through to the service road. As we go back to Jarno Trulli, now let's see what he's going to do as he comes up to complete his lap.
Yeah, let's watch him coming down towards pit lane here. We've got the left-right flick at Traguardo to go through, and then just slightly on the curb as he comes out, and he goes fastest. No great surprise, the track conditions improved during that half an hour rest, as you like, the interval, and Trulli now fastest for Renault.
But it's his teammate Jenson Button who's currently quicker in that second intermediate, so Jenson Button could in fact put himself to the top of the list in this very early part of second practice Saturday morning. Down into this final tight chicane, you've got to take lots of curb in, keep it straight as possible, then nail the throttle, use the traction control as little as possible, get maximum drive. 1 minute 28.248, 1.1 seconds quicker. That's getting nearer to what we would expect.
Yes, now we're seeing the times improve. This could well be a track that suits Renault. You need good traction, and we've seen that it has fantastic traction, that car. Partly a mixture of traction control, of course, but also the way the car reacts itself. Now, on board with Eddie Irvine. Great shot here from just behind the driver's head.
And looking down as they come down onto the bridge, down into the Ravazza. Very, very quick. And you brake so late. Tuck it over the curb again. Eddie being slightly cautious just in that initial entry, just not running over too much of the curb. Not wanting to commit himself at this point. No need to just pick up the information. Then complete your lap as we go. I'll go back on board with one of the McLarens. That was Raikkonen. In fact, we jumped on board with the second for that moment.
And so Eddie goes second fastest with a 129.380. Great view of that Tiger design on his crash helmet, isn't it?
Yeah, but Jenson Button again, quickest on track, quickest in the first, quickest in second sectors. As we watch Ralf Schumacher, who's personal best in first, we wait to see what happens as he comes into that second sector of the circuit. But Jenson Button going to improve, I believe, in his 28.2 when he completes the lap. Button coming out of Ravazza now, making his way down through the Variante Bassa as we watch Ralf Schumacher.
As you said, John, the gloves are off. Everybody pushing hard as the track dries out to get experience before they go into the 1 hour qualifying. And Jenson Button has further improved to 127.004.
But it's this man's teammate Montoya who's now the fastest man on track. Ralf Schumacher out of Ravazza. Nothing particularly special from Ralf on this lap. It's personal bests. But Montoya, the fastest man now on track through that first sector. Let's see what Ralf does.
Out of that final chicane, and he goes second fastest, so 128.022, about a second off button on that previous lap.
Well, we're seeing more purples up on the data screen. If you want to see what's going on, switch over to the data screen. It is absolutely manic. It's green and purple all over the place.
Just to remind you, the purple colours on the data screen mean the best time so far recorded by anybody in a sector or overall, depending on where you see that time. The greens mean a personal best, and we're seeing a lot of that, of course, on the data screen at the moment because the track conditions have improved so much.
Coulthard's fastest. Watch Montoya as he comes through the chicane. He was quickest in the first sector, personal best in the second sector. Montoya goes second to David Coulthard.
Yes, David Coulthard with the fastest time for McLaren Mercedes, 126.538, and that puts him just about 4/10 of a second faster than Montoya. We're watching Fisichella now.
And it's all Michelin in the top 6 places. Bernoldi, well, in fact, it's all changing now because, again, every lap, Sato has gone 5th quickest for Jordan, first of the Bridgestone cars.
Yes, and here's Fisichella. Let's see what he can do. Look, 3/10 of a second down on the second intermediate, and again has to sort of make a double bite on the steering there slightly as he comes out of the Variante Alta. Now the fast section, downhill, late on the brakes here. Downhill braking, that can sometimes make the car unstable. You can see it just twitching a bit over the curbs, and now hard on the throttle, building up the speed again to about 180 miles an hour before they brake for that last chicane.
Fisichella 16th, but David Coulthard fastest in first and second sectors. Fisichella will improve from 16th. He goes up to 7th place, but watch for David Coulthard. He's probably very close behind him.
Yes, David's not far off. This is Kimi, and let's just see what Raikkonen does as he comes. He goes second fastest now, but Coulthard is on a better lap, and in fact Coulthard's just set it faster again, a 125.438. You know, DC always goes well at this track. He's twice had the pole position. He's had a victory as well, always seems to be fast, and always gave Mika Häkkinen a very good run for his money on this particular track, sometimes quite often beating him here. And this time it looks as though DC looking confident once more behind his teammate Kimi Räikkönen.
Yes, looking very strong through the exit of the Villeneuve chicane, and in fact in the previous 4 years has been on the podium. First in 98, second in 99, third in 2000, second last year.
He does love this place, and it seems to respond to his style of driving. Looking at Rubens Barrichello now. Let's see what he can do in the Ferrari. How quick. And it's on intermediate still, as you can see. Across the line he is 7th, but they will surely put the dry groove tyres on in a moment.
But Ben, what's interesting, he had the fastest time in that second sector in spite of being on the intermediates. So clearly the Bridgestone tyre, that intermediate is incredibly flexible. It works when it's wet, and it's still able to work very, very well indeed when it's virtually dry conditions. Look at Räikkönen.
Yeah, Räikkönen bouncing it over the curb very hard indeed, but that is part and parcel of going quickly here at Imola. A few damp patches in a few places on the circuit, but I think what Barrichello was doing there as much as anything is gathering data for Ferrari, which may well be useful come race day. Now then,
Coulthard comes across the line, a slower lap, but in fact he was again fastest in that first sector. Slower, and down again at the Acqua Minerale, catching people out left, right and centre. It's Felipe Massa.
Yeah, Felipe Massa in the Sauber who's gone off this time, right down to the same place that Takuma Sato's gone, but he hasn't managed to get onto the
I'm just looking, Ben, that left rear, is there something, that left rear wheel looks like it's a slightly odd angle. I don't know whether it's just the camera position, but it looks as if there's something, to me, not quite right with that left rear. And certainly Felipe Massa is getting out of the car. He's not going to take part in any further of this practice session, and I think there's something either has failed or he's clipped something, or maybe just going through that sand trap has just been too much. Need to have a look at that.
Yeah, that's a great disappointment for the young Brazilian who needed this session, as they all do. Well, we only pick it up as he's already gone off there, and it's hard to try and pick out any particular problems from that sort of distance. But the Sauber team trying to analyse that as well and see why their man's gone off.
Well, I think that Massa was sitting in the car talking to the pits, explaining what has happened in his mind, and whether that's something on the rear suspension on the left-hand side, we are not entirely clear, but it looked to me like the wheel was towing out massively on that left rear, where ordinarily you'd expect virtually parallel on the rear. Occasionally some people do run tow out, but not to the degree, so we wait to see what happens for Felipe Massa. He's driving back.
Yes, it looks like he's actually managing to rejoin. We're just having a look on our track B, and in fact as we look down into the pit lane, the track's still getting better and better. Juan Pablo Montoya is on circuit at the moment, so we'll keep an eye on his times as we watch McLaren Mercedes just tending to their two drivers. David Coulthard fastest so far, Montoya second fastest, both of them are in the pit lane. Third fastest, Jarno Trulli. Fourth, Raikkonen. Villeneuve. Sixth, Sato. Then Button, Barrichello, Ralf Schumacher and Olivier Panis currently 10th.
Tom Walkinshaw looking into the Renault garage and being escorted away by the team members, and I don't know why Tom would be, but of course probably adjacent to them in the pit lane. That's why he's just having a peep in to see what's going on as we go back to Nick Heidfeld in the second of the Saubers.
So can the German driver now show what this Sauber is capable of doing? Villeneuve's going quickly on a lap at the moment, so the Bridgestone tyres working well on the BAR at this stage, but just remind you that we're still a little way off the full times that we would expect qualifying, but not that far off now. We're only 3 seconds off the pace once they've pumped all the fuel out, so the track really is getting into shape here. On board with Heidfeld once again through these two Rivazza left-handers, working the steering a little bit, making it around safely, and now accelerating towards that final chicane.
In the meantime, Keller has gone fourth quickest. Jacques Villeneuve, and there one of the two. Come on, get it going, my friend.
Yeah, Alex Young that was, yes, down at Rivazza.
Villeneuve also on Bridgestone's, it's currently 6th, fastest of anybody in that first sector. That BAR seems to a very good straight line. We've seen throughout the morning that Villeneuve was very quick in that first sector. So Villeneuve coming up to complete his lap. He's out of the Rivazza through the Bassa, he'll be coming across start-finish line. The chicane precedes start-finish line. He's gone straight into the pits. So he stays 6th quickest.
Hiding what they're capable of doing, perhaps. Here's Takuma Sato. He's also coming in.
Well, yep.
Yep. They've got that little extra wing on the back of the airbox this weekend. It's a bit of a Gary Anderson thing, that. He introduced it. I remember him bringing one of those in sort of mid-90s time to add a little bit of extra downforce, and they've reintroduced it there on the Jordan this year. In the pits with Ralf Schumacher, and just taking a moment or two before getting ready to come back out. And at the moment on track, Heinz-Harald Frentzen is putting in a quick lap.
Well, Frentzen currently 13th, and of course in the arrows there we see Frentzen through Rivazza. We've got Jordan, that must be, well, can't quite see who it is. It's Fisichella, in fact. So both Bridgestone tired cars coming up to complete laps. Fisichella currently in 4th place. Frentzen locks up the inside, the unloaded wheel as he turns in. The Jordan went into the pit lane, and Frentzen improves to 2nd place.
Second fastest for Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the arrows. That's pretty impressive stuff, you have to say. 1 minute 26.046 on the Bridgestone tyres, using the Ford engine, the Cosworth engine, and that car is going extremely quickly. Now, they were very disappointed with their qualifying last time out in Brazil, and certainly they were hurt a little bit by the fact that most of the Bridgestone runners seem to struggle a little bit in that session, but this time they're looking much, much better. A lot of work going on down here in the Renault pit. Look how close in we can get to the technology of the modern Formula One car. Absolutely unrivaled access, and some front suspension setup changes, just camber angles, toe-ins being changed on the front of that car.
I just doing is primarily in the camber, just to give it a little bit more bite and feel in the turn-in. And they're impassive as ever. We've had a great glimpse into Michael Schumacher through his visor. I mean, I've never seen pictures as just unbelievable. It tells you, I mean, I'd love to see a sports psychologist take those pictures of Michael's eyes and give us an analysis of it, because clearly the man is so comfortable, so at ease in a Grand Prix car. There's nobody on the field, I think, who's got that degree of relaxation, yet 100% committed.
Yeah, amazing to watch, and we have the opportunity to watch him at the height of his powers, there's no doubt about that. Peter, what have you got for us down there in pit lane?
Because you were third in the
Peter, can you hear me?
Yes, I can indeed, Ben. Sorry about that. I was just having a look here at the difference between the McLaren garage and the sort of space the boys have to work there. He looks pretty normal, pretty much in control, doesn't look very crowded. Kimi Raikkonen, and then they just fired up the engine. Let's just have a quick look down at Williams, the next garage, and you can see how much less space they have. 3 cars in there, and when both cars are in, you can see there's a lot of people, a lot of bustle. Pretty cool, but a lot less space, and that's of course because the garage spaces are allotted according to your positions in the Constructors' Championship the previous year. Juan Pablo leads on a brand new set of tyres, and Ferrari and McLaren in much better shape than Williams and the rest of the pit lane here at Imola.
Yeah, interesting to know that, and part of the reason why it's so important to be well up in the Constructors' Championship, of course, Frank Williams and Patrick Head have so often said that that's what they're racing for, and they are leading that Constructors' Championship at the moment.
And Alan McNish and Toyota will have a space of about one single garage to get their 3 cars in, but they've done a wonderful job so far on the first 3 races, scoring points. 2 points for Toyota Racing, and who would have thought after 3 races they would be in a position to have scored 2 points. I think most people totally misjudged the potential of this huge manufacturer.
Yes, but let's see what they can do in the drive. McNish goes across the line. He's 18th fastest at the moment. It's never raced here at Imola, although he did test here last year for the Toyota Formula 1 team. Let's just watch him through the first chicane. Tamburello builds up the speed very quickly on the exit of this one, and then heads on round the lap.
Of pole position last year.
Impressive stuff. Now I believe that we can speak to Tom Walkinshaw. Tom, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, thanks.
Great. It's good performance from Heinz Harald this morning. Are you impressed, or is this something that we shouldn't take too much notice of, being a free practice session?
Well, it's early yet, but he's doing a good job. He's been quick all weekend, and I think the car's doing quite well here.
Tell us about the amount of testing that the team's been able to do so far, and what you've got planned coming up.
Well, most of the work we've done so far has been rig testing back at the factory, and each race so far we've had new aerodynamic things on the car. We start the real testing on the track next week at Silverstone.
Well, thank you very much, Tom. Thanks for joining us this morning, and we wish you the best of luck. Let's hope Heinz Harald Frentzen keeps up the good work.
Well, maybe I was being a little bit ambitious in what I thought Michael Schumacher was capable of, because he's fractionally down on Montoya, but this is his first real venture on the circuit in these conditions. And let's watch through the second split, because Montoya through the first split is actually the quickest, but in the second time. So as he comes up to finish that second split time, he'll get an idea what Michael Schumacher's up to.
4 tenths down on the second split then to Juan Pablo Montoya's time. And of course we don't know how much fuel is on board these cars. They may not have pumped them that light yet, and the teams of course can also work out fairly quickly from their own lap times when they pump the fuel out how quickly it will go when lightened for qualifying. So that's always a bit of a disguise for us.
Well, they'll do normally one or two things. They'll put a given amount of fuel into the car and then say to the driver, we'll run this to the end. Or in the case of Williams, very frequently they keep topping it back up to that level. Michael Schumacher 6/10 of a second away in his first flying lap, and he's second quickest, but it's his teammate Barrichello. He's very quick, down in 14th.
We're watching Kimi Raikkonen. He's third fastest. So we have a Williams up front of Montoya, the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher second, and the McLaren of Kimi Raikkonen in third. The other McLaren is in fourth place. Then it's Trulli. No, it's not. It's Villeneuve who's just gone fifth.
But watch Rubens Barrichello. He's also fast. He goes third quickest.
So Barrichello improves. So now we have two Ferraris in the top three, and Rubens' time only a few thousandths, actually 3,000 slower there than Michael Schumacher. And Schumacher himself now is on a quick one.
It's not quick, it's blindingly quick. 4/10 quicker than we've seen so far. 23.772. Look at that, the way he just turns the car and the car responds. The balance of the car is so good. It gives him confidence. He's able to pick up the throttle through the second. 4/10 of a second up now on Juan Pablo Montoya.
That looked fantastic through there too. Just that little slide. Now let's ride on board with him. Plunging downhill, and this is highest speed on the track. On the brakes into the left-hander, and just uses a bit of curb. Doesn't bang it over too much there, because it does throw you offline. Uses quite a bit of curb on the exit, but not quite as much as we saw Montoya use.
Not quite as neat and tidy through the first part of the Ravazza, but let's see this final split time. And there for our lap time, it may see a small improvement. It does. It's an improvement of about 1/10 of a second from Juan Pablo Montoya. I have to say, Michael, I'm disappointed. I thought you would do it in the first lap, but you've done it for us on lap 2.
But I tell you what, it bodes well for qualifying if the gap between them is only 1/10 of a second, which is what it was just then. Kimi Raikkonen crosses the line again. That wasn't a particularly fast lap, but he might put one together here. And you're watching Ralf Schumacher and just sliding it on the exit of Piratella.
What Raikkonen was doing, he decided the lap wasn't worth pursuing. He slowed down to make sure he had a very good entry, but principally an outstanding exit off that chicane. So we're going to keep an eye on Raikkonen as he goes out to start his 20th lap. But look at Ralph through the chicane. Caused him so much trouble in the rain yesterday on those wet Michelins. Totally different job today.
Yeah, the confidence and the attack that they can bring into it on these dry weather tyres on a dry track, so different. And you can just watch. Oh, and he just puts a wheel over the edge, but that doesn't slow him down too much. Again, wide there, but again, not losing time through it. And this should be a personal improvement, if nothing else.
Well, one Schumacher is improving. The other one clearly is improving, as is David Coulthard. Coulthard fastest in the second sector. Michael Schumacher on his 19th lap fastest on the first sector.
But David Coulthard has gone fastest. Coulthard fastest here, just ahead of Michael Schumacher now. Good effort from the McLaren Mercedes. And are they now going to factor in the battle for pole here today? 4 pole positions they've had in the last 4 years. David himself on pole here last year, and he loves this place, and that car's going quickly.
Half a second away from pole position 2001, held by David Coulthard. Michael Schumacher deciding, in spite of being quickest in that first sector, into the pits. Raikkonen.
Well, only 5th fastest for Raikkonen, and he at the moment is not showing the same sort of pace as his experienced teammate. So perhaps he's got to find a few little tricks of the trade there to work on. Mario Ilian in the background of the shot there, the engine man, of course, for Ilmor, for Mercedes. And he'll be boosted, I'm sure, a little bit by David Coulthard's fastest time here so far.
Well, we thought this was going to be an exciting session, and literally it is by the lap. We're seeing personal best. That comes up green on the data screen. Currently there's no purple indicating the fastest in any one of those sectors. 1:23.362 is the... Look at again, you see the way the tyre wear, that's partly due to a green track. There's a little bit of pickup on that. The sort of the third from the right of those grooves in the tyre, just a little bit of understeer probably affecting Raikkonen. He'll want to get that dialed out as quickly as possible, because any understeer for a driver like Raikkonen means lost time. Other drivers can live with understeer, they can make it work for them, it gives them the confidence to maybe throw the car into the corner or lean on the back of the car more. they're not so concerned with having to make a little bit more movement on the steering wheel. The only difference it makes is in a very quick chicane, left to right, right to left. The change of direction, therefore, is probably a little bit more lazy with an understeer car than with a car that is very directional, very pointy.
So the two Ferraris both in the pits at the moment, some of the faster cars still on track. We've got Ralf Schumacher. David Coulthard's just come back out once again. Jenson Button is on track. Button at the moment in 10th position and his teammate Jarno Trulli in 9th. And Trulli's just come out. It'll be interesting to watch the Renault performance here over the next few laps. Let's see whether they can begin to challenge those fastest times. And this man, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, he's been going quickly when it's been damp. But what can they do here in the dry now?
Well, just watching Frentzen through the Variante Alta, not quite so impressive there down in the Ravazza, but using the curbs, the car looked again to ride very, very well indeed. Not putting too much shock load into the car, not causing the car to be deviated or feel uncomfortable for the driver. Frentzen able to ride the curbs quite comfortably, picks up the throttle, good drive off the chicane, no change in position, still remains in 11th place.
Yes, now that the conditions are that much drier, it's harder perhaps for them to start to challenge the top teams. Interesting also that Heidfeld down in 14th place, looking to improve on his next lap. I would expect the Saubers to be a bit further up the list, I have to say. Trying to listen in on the team radio, but we're not really getting a great deal, I'm afraid, today on our team radio communications. Well, I must apologise. I gather you're hearing the radio okay, and we're not. So I do apologise for the fact that we've been talking over the radio so much. We're hearing a garbled nothing, but I gather that you are actually hearing the radio. So we will try and sort that out and try not to talk over the top of it, because I know that so many of you do enjoy listening into those team conversations.
Nick Heidfeld slips up into 7th place as we look back at Jarno Trulli down in 10th. Personal best for Trulli through that first sector. The Michelin Tires, and this is essentially always considered, or since last year anyway, considered to be a circuit that suits the qualities of the Michelin Tire more than that of Bridgestone, primarily because the Imola circuit now is very much a point and squirt circuit. There's not many of those sort of very long high speed circuit or corners such as you would have in Barcelona or maybe at Silverstone, for example. So no surprises to see the Michelin teams running close to the front, but do not discount what Bridgestone have got. They are aware of what Michelin are up to, and they have responded and will respond.
On board now with the Italian, Jarno Trulli, plunging downhill. A fast section here, remember, and then trying to get it all anchored up in time for the left-hander. That looked tidy, looked neat. That also looked very smooth, and working that Renault engine and the traction control as hard as possible as he heads around the latter part of the lap. Now into the final chicane. He lost it here yesterday in the wet. Nice and tidy through there this time, and that puts Trulli 9th fastest. I might have expected to see a little faster time at this point in this free practice session. Meanwhile, Mika Salo, relaxed, waiting for the next opportunity to go out on track. He's currently in 16th place.
Yes, just looking at the temperatures, track temperature now 24 and ambient 17, so all through this session temperatures are rising, and if this remains, then we're going to see temperatures certainly in the high 20s probably for track, and certainly maybe even into the low 20s for ambient, which is about ideal for what the tyre companies will have brought. They know that at this time of year, weather conditions, temperatures are never going to be comparable to the first 2 or 3 flyaway races, so their tyres are constructed and compounded accordingly, but they didn't expect it to be that cool as we saw on Friday or earlier this morning.
Montoya stays 4th with a 24.177. That's a fraction slower than his previous best lap. Teammates still sitting in the pit lane. These two running 2nd, Ralf Schumacher, 3rd, Pablo Montoya in the championship. Desperately needing a strong result here versus Ferrari at Imola. They know that the next they go to in Spain, Barcelona, the track doesn't really suit the car quite so well. Certainly in winter testing they weren't so happy with it, so they desperately want to get a good result here this weekend and then try and do their very best at Barcelona, but they do expect this car to be very quick in Spain. Montoya a little bit quicker on this next lap, so we'll keep an eye on him.
Yeah, but he's still slower than the first cars ahead of him through that first split. As a personal best for Juan Montoya, but and again makes a mistake in Acqua Minerale. Again, that's the back end. He felt that if he turned the wheel too sharply, too quickly, the back end would get away, so he steered away from the corner, to reduce the tendency for the back end of the car to step out. So too much back end looseness in the Williams.
So let's just take a look at this once again, John. Let's talk about...
Okay, he's turning in normally. Oops, there it goes, the back end got away. So the car's out of position. He's into recovery to try and get the car, keep it on track, avoid running off track. You don't want to go off track when you've got your dry weather groove tyres on, because you may pick up a puncture, or with only 7 sets available from Friday or Saturday morning forwards for the Grand Prix and qualifying, you've got to be sure that you unnecessarily reduce one set by doing so.
So Ralph coming back onto circuit now as well. Montoya's picked up the pace once again.
Call those brakes if you're coming in.
The positions remain the same. Coulthard fastest from Michael Schumacher, then Ralf Schumacher and Juan Pablo Montoya. Barrichello 5th, Raikkonen 6th, 7th, Frentzen 8th, Trulli 9th, Fisichella, Villeneuve, Button, Sato, Panis in 14th, Bernoldi 15th, Salo 16th, just ahead of teammate Magnition 17th. Felipe Massa, who went out, of course, but then did get back on again. He's completed 14 laps in all, and then it's Irvine in 19th place.
Michael on a charge. This is something that looks like it's fairly workmanlike. Let's see the time. Well, it's 58/100th of a second. Quicker than David Coulthard, and the strength that the Ferrari and the Bridgestone have had is at the end of the lap, not necessarily here in the early part, the first sector. Up into Piratella again, trying to look into the visor, this darkened visor. We lose Michael's eyes. I thought it was just one of the most magical things I've ever seen on television.
Yeah, great shots yesterday that was in our free practice coverage here on Digital F1, when we could actually see his eyes through the clear visor he was using in the wet conditions.
Fastest through second sector, 28.2 is against 28.25 is against 28.28, as the car now plunges down into Ravazza. The first part, got to tuck it in early. Stayed away from the curb and didn't use any curb at all. Other drivers have been taking chunks of curb. Took a bit more curb in the exit of Ravazza too. Now accelerate down through the very end to Bassa. So just flick left, right, left. Then on the brakes, clean entry. Good drive off the exit. Is it going to be good enough to make him quickest? It is indeed. 23.256.
So he goes fastest. Michael Schumacher, free practice, and Schumacher fastest for Ferrari, ahead now of Coulthard, and he looks as though he's going to push once again on this lap.
Ralf Schumacher, he puts in now the final sector, having just improved on his brother. Ralf Schumacher currently third, Coulthard second, and Michael, of course, just gone quickest.
Right, on board now with Ralph. Let's see what he's up to here. Sector times wise, first one was good. Now through the quick right hand parts, on the brakes, gets it under control. That was very tidy through there. Didn't get too much oversteer, which we saw one or two others.
Forget about Ralph. Michael again charging. Fastest in the first sector, fastest in the second sector.
Yeah, but he's just gone off. He's just gone onto the gravel. He was
at Ravazza, part one of Ravazza. He just overdid it, turning in and he's blown what was going to be his quickest lap of the day and probably the quickest lap of all.
Yeah, that was looking like a very impressive lap. If you look at the data screens now, you'll see he had purple on the first two sectors. That means the fastest time so far on those two first sectors. Now, look at there, you can see the picture, the two purple colours there for Michael's times, but it wasn't completed. Look at the space, and so he's come into the pits now. Ralf Schumacher, meanwhile, third fastest, 1:24.1 on that last lap, so not as quick as the previous.
Off Jordan Fisichella on the exit of Piratella. Very, very quick part of the circuit. So Fisichella's car, you can see steam coming off. That's just off the tyre. I mean, hopefully we'll have a replay of that. Barrichello locks it up. Rear brakes lock up as he goes into Ravazza. That's where Michael Schumacher got it wrong. Barrichello gets it right. Barrichello quickest in that second sector.
Yes, this could be a good improvement for him. Fifth currently. Is this going to push him up with his teammates? It puts him up into third place. It means that still David Coulthard is between the two Ferraris with that time he set a little earlier in this session. But Barrichello now goes third fastest, Ralf Schumacher fourth, Montoya fifth, Raikkonen sixth, Villeneuve seventh as Fisichella out of his car. And, well, he'll be heading back to the pit lane, I think. Let's take a look at what happened here.
Well, it was all wrong. He got it wrong in the first part of the Piratella. Ran wide, probably caught the curb, and then the car just got sucked all the way onto the grass and then into the gravel. Not too heavily damaged there as Michael just over-braked himself. Again, we saw Barrichello as well. That rear brake was locking up for Michael and for Barrichello.
Yeah, that looked exactly the same. To watch as they come down the hill. They are heading downhill there. That tends to put the weight of the car on the front wheels, makes the back end of the car light, and the rear wheels tend to lock up more easily.
So just another little error. We saw one from Michael yesterday, but you know, right now people are pushing very hard. Track conditions are improving. Everybody wanting to find out. We've got 7 minutes of this session remaining. It is crucial for the teams now to know which tyre choice they're going to make. I think they've probably got an idea, certainly in the Michelin runners, I'm sure, are going to run with that new tyre that was tested for them down in Valencia in Spain last week. And Michael Schumacher is still quickest, of course, on Bridgestones, but Coulthard in the McLaren only, 0.3 of a second away.
Good to see the competitiveness of the McLaren compared to the Ferraris, and let's hope that they can keep that up during qualifying itself. There's only 6.5 minutes of this free practice session to go, and then the next time they're on track will be for that all-important official qualifying session. And as we know, unless you're on the first couple of rows here at Imola, unless you're very lucky, you're not going to win the Grand Prix. That's what it's all about. The battle for qualifying will be even more intense, perhaps, if it can be here, and particularly with the lack of track running they've had in ideal conditions. Everybody's still learning, they'll still be experimenting, and then getting out there to do whatever they can on track.
Well, just getting the motor fired up. I assume those will be a brand new set of tyres. You can see in there Kimi, that's his tyre blankets, and his tyres will be wrapped up in those as the team just take them off. Fresh set of Michelin rubber. So for Raikkonen, a simulation qualifying run, and let's hope he can improve on his current sixth place. David Coulthard second on a 23.550, Raikkonen 24.6, 1.1 seconds. Now, if he can carve that off his time, he'll be a happy little Finn, and so will Ron Dennis.
On board now with Juan Pablo Montoya. This one, he's not on it quickly. He's just come out of the pits. This is his first lap out of the pits. Now he goes on to his first flying lap. 29 laps he's completed throughout the course this morning so far. And this one now will give him another opportunity to see whether they've come up with a decent setup on the Williams for him to try and take his second pole in a row. Remember, he took pole position last time out in Brazil.
And quick through that first part of the Villeneuve. You've got to get it slowed down before you turn right. Easy to overrun that corner into the Tossa hairpin, but 0.3 of a second away from Michael Schumacher. That'll be very, very difficult to reduce.
What I'm not sure about is whether he was definitely out on new tyres for this run, so we'll just have to watch that one. Not quite sure whether he was on scrub tyres as he heads down the hill. That's past where Fisichella went off. You can still looks like there's damp patches down there, but it doesn't affect them now.
Nice entry and exit out of Acqua Minerale. A good drive. Second sector times coming up, and almost a second. So clearly a set of tyres that have done more than this flying lap. Again, picks up the dirt on the outside front tyre. You can see it's still showing brown. It takes a long time for that dust, dirt, mud, and again turning into Ravazza. Got to be careful. Look at the understeer. Now that's the result. He's back. The same thing happened to him the lap on the run earlier when he went wide again, coming out of the very Anti-Alta.
So Montoya now will be coming back into the pits, having backed off at the end of the lap. Somebody's spun. That's Alex Young in the Minardi, who's spun down towards the pit lane entrance.
I don't know how he ever managed to spin there. I mean, it must have been a long tank slapper all the way out of the Bassa down to lose it down there. So, another first for Alex Young.
Very strange. Never mind. 3 minutes, just over 3.5 minutes to go in this session. I'm watching Kimi Räikkönen now. Kimi has done his outlap. And now we'll see whether he's not going very quickly at the moment, so he's just sort of cruising around, looking for a bit of space, I think, perhaps building up the speed now a bit more.
He did pick up a bit of time, and this is on his out lap on that final sector. He picked up 0.7 of a second, but now he's got a Ferrari ahead of him, and just trying to look and see, it's Michael Schumacher, in fact, as Ron Dennis probably, so maybe going to, he's talking to, I'm sure he's talking to Räikkönen, saying just be aware.
Everybody trying to find that little bit of space on track to give them a clear understanding of how fast they will be able to go come qualifying. But with only just a few moments left in this last free practice session before they get into the 1 hour of the grid determining session, it is absolutely vital to try and get a clear lap in.
But then Michael Schumacher sat in the pits, 2 minutes 40 seconds remaining. He's just gone out on track for that one final lap to try and just really stick it up, people, and get into the 1 minute 22s.
Running on board with Ralph. And some team radio coming through. I'm afraid we're not hearing it. I hope you are still hearing it clearly, as Ralph in 4th place at the moment.
It sounds like a broken exhaust. Mike's saying one of the laps is on the right.
And there you can see 1.5 seconds down on the split, but it did look to me as though he might have backed off a little bit during that lap. 29.1 on the middle sector, about a second off the best through there.
Michael Schumacher, this is an out lap. He has to come across start finish line to begin. He's giving it plenty of large because he's got to get across start finish line with just 1 minute 40 seconds. He'll do that without any trouble at all. Well, look at that live super. Look at the body language of the car.
Fantastic.
Look at his hands, hardly any movement whatsoever. He just takes his line. He's got it so right, he doesn't have to make any adjustments whatsoever.
Well, last time out, remember, he's got the fastest segment time through the middle sector there. Has got a car right ahead of him, unfortunately, as he comes down towards this final corner. And let's hope that doesn't slow him down. It's Jarno Trulli in the Renault, and Michael Schumacher with a 23.046, and that is a very rapid time indeed. Fastest time that we've seen around this Imola track, faster than pole time from last year.
And Michael Schumacher has got one more lap in which he can further improve. He's got Jarno Trulli ahead of him, but I think he's backed off. He's decided, no way, I'm not going to bother with anymore. Kimi Räikkönen not as impressive as we had seen with those new tyres on, remains in 6th place. Therefore, disappointment, I think, for Kimi. Maybe he got a bit of traffic. But Michael Schumacher's situation still quickest car on track. Not this lap, he's backed out of it, and that's the end of the session, I think, for Michael Schumacher.
All right, well,
brake dust, Ben. Look at the brake dust coming out of Schumacher. Ralph's Williams under heavy braking into Tamburello. Tons and tons of carbon dust coming out from those wheels.
Yeah, that's a factor here. There's no doubt we'll be watching that in qualifying and brake. Well, look at this, really throwing over the Radiante Alta. That's Jarno Trulli, banging it over the curbs. I know you have to do that, but that looked a little bit too much.
Well, that was rock apish. I mean, Jarno just grabbed the car, just sort of threw it from about 100 yards into the corner, and didn't do himself or the car, I'm sure, any good.
Nick Heidfeld takes checkered flag.
4th quickest as well.
4th fastest, yeah, good effort that from the Sauber driver to finish off the session. 1 or 2 drivers still on reasonable laps out there, but Coulthard not on a particularly quick lap himself. He's about half a second down on the best of Michael Schumacher. Let's see what this middle sector's like.
Doesn't quite get the front of the car over that curb, as we've seen others do.
Jenson Button ahead of him on the road, but just far enough ahead of him not to affect him too much. Looked good through the chicane. And the 2 British drivers heading down towards the latter part of the lap now. Coulthard hoping that Button doesn't slow his progress, but they're both very much on a quick lap. Button currently down in 16th place. This is going to be a big improvement. It's going to see Button jump up the time order. Here we go then. Button jumps up and he comes up to 8th. David Coulthard's time, some 6/10ths slower than Michael's, and only a 10th off his previous best.
Well, an impassive Adrian Newey looks at the times, and well, he can't be dissatisfied with David Coulthard being second, but he will be very dissatisfied because he's actually half a second away from Michael Schumacher.
So prospects still good for qualifying. It has to be said that McLaren Mercedes, particularly with David Coulthard, could be in that battle. Raikkonen has just been pushed back down to 7th as a result of Heidfeldt's improvement a moment ago, but Coulthard does always go well here at Imola. Just everything seems to come together for him so often. Pole position last year and didn't quite manage to go on to take the victory. It was Ralf Schumacher, of course, who made a brilliant start, a great getaway, and it was the first win for Williams BMW. But Coulthard determined to show that McLaren Mercedes are back in good form, and the performance this morning showing that he may well be able to challenge along with the Williams BMWs. But can anybody beat this man? Michael Schumacher completing this morning free practice session at Imola as fastest once again.
Well, I think it's going to be very difficult for anybody to challenge Michael Schumacher. From what we have seen, half a second the difference. And look at Kimi Raikkonen out of the top 6, and there's over a second. That second has remained probably for the last 10 minutes between teammate David Coulthard and Kimi Raikkonen. So finding it maybe a bit more of a struggle here over the curves, not coming to terms with the Michelin tyre and the McLaren chassis as successfully as David Coulthard. That said, of course, David does seem to have a love affair with Imola, and well, we look to see what he is capable of. But if he can get on the front row of the grid, that will make David Coulthard much, much happier than he's probably been at any point this year.
Yes, well, we'll wait to see what happens when they're all on new tyres, as they will be in qualifying, of course. Looking further on down the list, the two Jordans were together, 13th and 14th. Irvine in the Jaguar, 15th fastest. His teammate Pedro de la Rosa down in 18th. Webber 19th once again, and McNish up into 20th place, with the last two being Felipe Massa, whose running was restricted, of course, after he ran wide, and Alex Young, the last there, on a 128.993. So that's how the 22 cars finish off this morning's session, and Michael looks happy, looks fairly relaxed, talking to Jean Todt, and on the left of the picture there, his manager, Willy Weber.
Well, one might call it a power meeting. Jean Todt, of course, instrumental in bringing the success to Ferrari, bringing the people that have created this incredible team. Willy Weber, the man who looks after Michael and Ralf Schumacher, and who's become extremely wealthy as a result of their successes on track.
Let's take a look at the highlights now.